that's for sure. Never have to close the door. Been a long time, a year before, and I'm missing you so bad.
Hi guys, welcome back to Exmo Lex. For a recent video, I was scrolling through Mormon groups on Facebook and a little bit on Reddit, and I was kind of shocked and saddened by some of the posts. I remember being a Mormon and really struggling with certain things about the church, but I guess I had kind of forgotten just how difficult it can be to deal with some of the situations that they go through. For example, being in a position where you're barely making it by, but also feeling obligated to pay tithing. Or feeling like your religion is under attack from all sides. Or even something as simple as going insane every Sunday because you have so few things you can do for entertainment. So I want to share a few of these posts with you, obviously anonymously, and just chat about them and talk about the Mormon mindset behind them. Let's start off with something that hit close to home. My sister, who is not familiar with the church, found an anti-Mormon TikTok that talks about the temple clothing in a derogatory way, and she asked me if we really dress that way. How can I turn this conversation into an uplifting one? It could have been any number of TikTok videos. I mean, it could have been anyone, really. But I can't help but wonder. From a Mormon perspective, simply talking about temple clothing outside of the temple could be seen as sacrilegious. It's a weird topic because as a Mormon, you're really encouraged only to talk about the temple clothes in the temple after the endowment ceremony. And at that point, you're sitting in what is supposed to be like the holiest place you can possibly be. So you're using really hushed voices and you're supposed to be only really talking about uplifting topics or praying. So at that point, are you really going to bring up anything negative about the temple clothes? From the very beginning, when I very first tried on temple clothes, I found them very uncomfortable, obviously unflattering. They were annoying. Nothing would sit right. I always felt like I couldn't get my veil to sit right and the robe would always fall off my shoulder. And then there's the apron, which is obviously bizarre looking. I mean, none of it is awesome, but I'm obviously not going to bring that up while I'm sitting in the celestial room. All of that to say that as a Mormon, you could have said that I was having derogatory thoughts about the temple clothes that I obviously never would have said out loud. This person's sister simply asked if Mormons really dress that way, and the answer is yes, they do. But really, the most uplifting conversation you're going to be able to have about it is, yes, we do wear those clothes for sacred temple ceremonies that are so sacred that I can't tell you about it, but just trust me, they're really sacred. Like, you can't go into depth on any of it. And if you did, then you would run the risk of finding out that the temple ceremonies are ripped off of Freemasonry. Anyways, it's weird to think about this person's position. They're probably upset about this TikTok, upset that their sister is watching anti-Mormon stuff. I know that I definitely would have felt that way as a Mormon. But talking about the temple clothes, wearing them, dancing in them, doing whatever in them is a way of reclaiming our power. Something that once had such immense power over us to the point that we were too scared to even talk about it outside of a certain building, now has no power over us. And I think that's beautiful in its own way. All right, this next one is really sad. If you know me personally, please don't say anything, but me and my husband are really struggling. My husband got baptized about 2 years ago and we've been working on getting sealed in the temple. It's a super long and hard journey. We knew we would need to pay tithing to be worthy, so we started paying in January, and we've paid the full 10% ever since. It's been really hard because my husband makes next to nothing and has had to start working literally 80 hours a week. I can't work because we literally can't afford childcare here in Utah, so I side hustle like crazy just so we get by. So for 2 paychecks, we only paid 5% tithing because ever since we've started paying tithing, we've slowly gone more and more into debt because we really can't afford it. So our account just goes negative. We live on a very tight budget, by the way. We don't get anything extra at the store, no eating out ever. So our bishop confronted us and said we couldn't get sealed because we didn't pay the full 10% on those checks. So we started paying 10% again. It's literally the only thing holding us back from the temple. We can't afford it. I pay it at the beginning of the paycheck so I don't have to think about it. Taking a leap of faith, I've heard. We come out negative the exact amount we've paid tithing every single time. And we are starting to not be able to afford necessities like food, diapers, wipes. We literally live off of WIC food items. That is a difficult way to live, by the way. Just taking it from somebody who's been on WIC before, it would be hard to live off of just WIC. We expressed to our bishop that we were struggling, and he said there is no way to look past it, and we cannot get sealed if we don't pay 10%. He won't offer help either, and when we asked, he just shook it off and said we needed to take leaps of faith. I'm crying about every day because we aren't making it, living off of black beans and using toilet paper for my 8-month-old instead of wipes. I'm angry. I feel like we can't afford to be LDS. We can't afford to have the blessing of eternal marriage. I try to think, oh, it's not the church, it's our bishop. But golly, we are hundreds of dollars in debt strictly because of tithing. The church won't even help us. And I'm really just about to give up. I want to get sealed, and God knows our situation, but we can't do it anymore. I want to leave the church. I believe in the gospel so much, and I have a strong testimony and a good relationship with Jesus Christ, but I'm having a hard time with the fact that I have to prove myself to an earthly man just so I can get eternal blessings. When I tell you this broke my heart, not only from the perspective of an outsider looking in, but also thinking back on my own time as a Mormon and just how devastating this would have been. Many people who aren't members of the church or never have been might not understand, but going to the temple is a huge deal in the Mormon church. Your eternal salvation and your eternal family is riding on it. And within Mormonism, that's the entire goal of life, so it's extremely important. But on the other hand, in this family's case, they're barely surviving. First of all, shame on that bishop. There are some LDS bishops who would let this slide or maybe even offer to help with the bills, but that really comes down to the type of bishop you get. And these guys are not messengers of God. They don't have the so-called spirit of discernment. They don't have any special formal education or training on anything. They're just people. So as much variation as there is in people, that's the same kind of variation you're gonna get bishop to bishop. I can relate to this in some ways because there were points in our life where my husband and I were really struggling just to afford to live, and we still felt obligated to pay tithing. But in this person's situation, I feel like it's even worse because she and her husband haven't been sealed together yet. So they don't have that guarantee of being together forever. They haven't been sealed for time and all eternity. So from this person's perspective, she and her husband will not be together in the afterlife unless they can scrape together enough money to be able to afford to pay tithing, and then the bishop declare them worthy to enter the temple. It seems like this person is mostly in agreement that it comes down to the bishop and it's her bishop that's not allowing them to go in. But this is the church's fault. The church has taught over and over and over that nobody is too poor to pay tithing. And listen, I don't believe in God, but I could not worship a God that judges your worthiness to enter heaven based on whether you can afford to pay or not. This is why I emphasize the message, there's nothing you're not worthy of. Let's move on to the next one. Hey ladies, I joined this group to find some solidarity and light on Facebook, but I'm still feeling so small. Every day I see new anti-church posts from people I love outside this group or combative comments toward well-meaning people in the group. I feel like everything is under attack and like the Lord is withholding something from me. With the pandemic being so hard, why is the faith, the gospel, the very thing that makes up the fiber of my being, so mercilessly attacked? Every time I see a post attacking our presidency, I just cry. I feel like I'm being crushed and my family will be doomed by this world. I'm sorry it's so loaded, but what can I do to feel better? When will the light come back? I have to wonder what kinds of things this person is seeing that they feel are merciless attacks against the LDS Church. I'm not denying that perhaps there are some people who attack the church, but when I think about most of the so-called anti-Mormon material I know of, and I know of a lot given what I do on the internet, I can't think of anything that would be a merciless attack. That seems pretty dramatic. Most ex-Mormon, ex-cult, ex-religious content is usually something educational, like 5 things that you might not have heard before about Joseph Smith. Or it's an actual experience of somebody who left the church, like my Mormon temple experience. Or criticism of church leaders, like 10 times the Mormon prophets contradicted each other. And if it's not any of those things, it's usually probably going to be satire that's just meant to make other people who have been in that situation laugh. I personally wouldn't call any of those things attacks, but as somebody who has been a member of the church before, I can see why this person would have phrased it that way. Anything that is even remotely critical of the church is often viewed as an attack and like you're being persecuted for your religion. Here's another similar one. Hey ladies, I need help/advice. I've been seeing so many anti-Mormon videos everywhere. I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing it in my feed. I don't even research into it. What helps you overcoming this insanity? I honestly get upset by these videos and I'm not good with confrontation. The super easy answer to this is just to scroll right on by. It's that easy. It's what most people do when they see something on the internet they don't like. For example, my Mormon family and friends post stuff about the church constantly. Photos of their family going to church 3 or 4 times a month, baptism stuff, general conference quotes, stuff like #GiveThanks, baby blessings. I mean, it's constant. It's all the time. And I guarantee you that I have to see more church posts than this person has ever had to see of so-called anti-Mormon stuff. And sometimes I do feel like I'm just sick and tired of seeing it on my feed. But guess what I do? I just scroll right on past. I also thought her saying, I don't even research into it was very telling. Like, yeah, we know. Maybe you should think about doing it though. I don't know, just a thought. On a serious note, on some level, I really do feel bad for these people. I've been in that position before and it does feel overwhelming and sad, and you're pretty much programmed to believe that your faith is under attack and Satan is trying to tear you down all the time. So you come across this so-called anti-Mormon stuff and you feel like this is literally Satan's work. It's hard, and the church teaches this behavior. I've talked about it in videos before. The church constantly puts out propaganda that talks about how it's the end of times and the world is going to turn into a wicked, horrible place full of whoredoms and evil. And I believe that in the last few years, the church has lost a lot of members. And on top of that, they're receiving a lot of negative publicity. And with both of those things combined, there is a lot more anti-Mormon stuff circulating than ever before. In fact, that Unilad video I did a few weeks ago, the last time I checked, it had over 4 million views, which is probably close to the same amount of active practicing Mormons that there are in the world. It's sad that Mormons view the world outside of the church as a scary place, and it's sad that they view every criticism as an attack. This one came from Reddit. Very long story short, born in the covenant, returned missionary, resigned due to same-gender attraction years ago, in a 20-plus year relationship/marriage. Started returning to church a few years ago as a non-member. Today, leaving church, I felt sad and depressed. This has unfortunately become the norm. This has nothing to do with my testimony, and more about feeling like I'm never going to be able to make this work. I'm never going to have an eternal family. I'm never going to be married to a woman. I'm never going to have children. The answers to my prayers have been to stay in my marriage, my happy, successful, same-gender marriage. That goes directly against the teachings of the church. I do not think the church needs to or should change anything regarding the proclamation. I support it. That being said, it still doesn't make any of this easy. My question is this: for those who have a testimony, how have you stayed active when other things have made it harder for you to continue to attend? I can't be the only one who struggles to attend when you happily believe the teachings. Again, this isn't a testimony issue. Another one that just absolutely breaks my heart. And here's the thing. I sometimes see Exmos hardcore judging gay members of the church who stay in the church. I have to say, I do not condone that. We can't know this person's situation just from a few short words on this post, and it's not our place to judge them. Most all of us at some point have been in a position where we believed in the church and we were doing some serious mental gymnastics to justify certain policies or doctrine. All that to say that when someone is gay and they want to remain a member of the church, I don't think it's helpful to try to argue them out of it or shame them for it. On this particular story, I just feel awful for this person. I can't even imagine how it must feel to be in their shoes. When we in this community talk about changing the church, this is why. The church has changed so much over the years because of progressive Mormons and ex-Mormons who criticized harmful practices or policies. There are people who will never leave the church but will continue to suffer because of what is taught. And the church isn't going away, but we can make a difference for the people who are still in it and for the children who will be raised in it by pointing out the flaws in the organization and advocating for change. And I wish this person nothing but the best. All right, you guys, that's enough for today. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And before we go, huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And a special thank you to Anthony Guthrie at Keegar, Craig Call, Jake Nunyabiz, Melissa Jane, and the Exmo Candle Company for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you would like to support the channel, you can find links to do that in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Never revealing no secrets you're keeping. These promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure. Never have to close the door.